Well. Finally, both Bill and Hillary Clinton have been deposed in the case of, I don't even want to say it, but you guys all know exactly what Jeffrey Epstein did. They were deposed, and it was quite interesting. I'm going to get into some very fine, minute details along with some own investigative journalism that I myself have concluded. You know what's funny about this case is that it is very, very complex and very, very deep. And most of these journalists have not scratched the surface. I have no journalistic degree. I'm not necessarily someone that prides themselves on investigative journalism. My credentials are nothing, and yet I was able to find things that they were not able to find. So first, let's get into the deposition, and then I will describe to you exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, and exactly why Bill Clinton needed Jeffrey Epstein. Let's just get right into it. The deposition was a joke. First, Hillary Clinton was there, and she seemed aggravated. I'd be aggravated too. This is old news. She knows that nothing's going to happen to her. She absolutely knows it. And it seems to me like she was more forthcoming and she was less able to conceal her true emotions. And it came off as anger. But really, I believe it came off more so as contempt. Because if she's going down for this, everyone knows this. If she is going down for this, then everyone's going down for this, and she still can't get over the fact that Donald Trump sunk her ship in 2016, and so she just wanted to implicate Donald Trump. And for the record, he's probably guilty too. He is probably guilty too, but she wanted him to go in. If she has to go in, he will go in. She just made an absolute mockery of our judicial system, and honestly, our judicial system made an absolute mockery of itself. This is ridiculous. It's a dog and pony show. They're going to have no accountability for anything that they've done, but that's not the interesting side of things, folks. Hillary Clinton didn't surprise me one iota. She did exactly what I thought she was going to do. On the other hand, the more fascinating thing is Bill Clinton. Let's get into it. Bill Clinton. He basically denied everything. He denied seeing people and meeting people that not only he knew for a fact on a first name basis and lied about it, but it's people in the public lexicon that everyone would know the names of, and yet he can't recall. You can't recall. You're out of your fucking mind if you can't recall that. I know that you're a smart dude, Bill, and I know that your memory isn't shot that much, although you are quite old, I must admit. You got away with this fuckery for a very long time. But the chickens are coming home to roost. He acted like he just used Jeffrey Epstein through a third party in order to fly on his jet 26 times. And let me be honest with you folks, flying on a jet 26 times, if you're a current or former president of the United States, is not taboo. That's not the weird part. They're focusing on parts of the investigation that are not weird at all. Why even bring that up? So what? He flew on a plane. We're not talking about flying on a plane. It's not illegal to fly on a plane. And you have to think to yourselves, as a former president, your life doesn't just stop. You have philanthropic and business endeavors. You have many different goals that you have to accomplish. You do speaking gigs. You have to make that money. Make that money. You're building buildings overseas. You're advocating for certain things, like for instance with Bill Clinton and his AIDS, philanthropic work, I guess, to hopefully find a cure for AIDS, which, for the record, the government probably created it, and they probably have the cure, but at least he can do that. And here's what gets interesting, folks, is why was he doing that? Why does every single president have some philanthropic business? And it is a business, and I'll get right into it because I know exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, because I siphoned through probably tens of thousands of documents in order to find something that hit close to home in my hometown, which I'll get to later. But getting back to Bill, he denied everything. He said, I barely knew him. I just knew him because he said I could use his jet. Okay, Bill, I'm not saying that using his jet 26 times when you fly probably 3 times a week, I'm not saying every single week of your life since you've left office. That's not the crazy part. To me, the interesting part, and the part that pretty much implicates him as nothing less than guilty, is the fact that there are these photos. There are these photos that clearly implicate him. And they asked him, they said, Bill, did you get a massage while you were on that airplane? And he said, well, yeah, I did get a massage while I was on that airplane. That's not a crime. Okay, you're right. That is not a crime. But look right here. I'm going to put it right up here. This is the person that massaged Bill Clinton. Now, when you go see a masseuse, especially in a professional capacity, especially if you're a former president of the United States, you don't then take a picture of the masseuse on your lap. On your lap. That's weird as fuck. Is that not weird? That is weird. That shows me that they were more intimate than just business. Let me give you a massage. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. There was a happy ending there. There was some sort of shenanigans taking place there. You don't take that photo like that unless something is going on. Furthermore, we'll get into the photos. So he said that he barely knew Jeffrey Epstein. He said, just an acquaintance through Ghislaine Maxwell. And here's the thing, is that Ghislaine in these photos, it seems in the background that she is hoping that this interaction goes well. Like she's the one that introduced them. Fair enough, that's totally fine. But you saying that you didn't actually speak or know Jeffrey Epstein on a personal level is completely ludicrous. And I'll tell you why. Look at this photo right here. This photo right here that I'm putting up on the screen. Look at what they're wearing. They said that they were doing a philanthropic AIDS event overseas. I assume that that right there is not the type of attire that you would wear. And furthermore, all of them are wearing the same exact thing. Very tacky, it looks like a Versace silk shirt, maybe pants as well. And for the record, if you're going to be advocating against AIDS, then you shouldn't be wearing the gayest thing I've ever seen. But that's on another note. Look at what they're wearing. All three of them coordinated that. That is not typical dress for an ex-president of the United States. And that's not what Bill Clinton looks like. He looks like, I don't know, it's like Gianni Versace. It looks like Fabio. That's not something that he typically has in his closet, which tells me automatically that they coordinated that. They all three got together and coordinated that. Birds of a feather. If you, like, that is just pleasure right there. That was a pleasure trip. That was not a business trip. You don't even pack that unless you have coordinated that. It all seems too coordinated. It's like you showing up to Christmas with an ugly Christmas sweater because you coordinated it with your entire family. It's like that's not typically something you would wear out in public as you go get groceries or run errands. That's something, or wear to, for the record, to wear to work. To wear while you're working. That right there is entirely business. And yeah, it shows him in other photos of him being in a hot tub, and that's not a crime. And for the record, what he did with Monica Lewinsky, although not very well thought out and not a good look as the president of the United States, that, my friends, was not illegal. She knew what she was doing, and although it's tacky and he cheated on his wife openly, and got caught, which means he's done it many more times before and probably after, that, my friends, is not illegal. What we're talking about is illegal. Just like with Jeffrey Epstein saying about Bill Clinton in letters, he likes them young. What does that mean, he likes them young? He was one of the youngest presidents we've ever had. So if he liked them young back then, how young are we talking about? How young are we talking about? You're thinking of him now being an old man. But that letter wasn't written now. That was written back in, 1993, 1994? And he was one of the youngest presidents we've ever had? and he likes them young, quote unquote, what the fuck does that mean? Getting back to Monica Lewinsky, they let that one in to the public. They let them know. They let us know. Why would they let us know? They could have just killed her. They could have shut her up. They could have bribed her. Why would they let that get out? People don't seem to realize that when things leak, they leak intentionally. They leak intentionally to cover up bigger things. And why would they let that just mysteriously come out? Oh, sorry, I did something bad. That's the one he got caught with. That's the one. I think it was because someone probably attempted to blackmail him and expose the fact that he was indeed talking to people that were younger in an illegal way. And so that just so happened to slip out. Oh well. No harm, no foul. Sorry, it looks bad, but it doesn't destroy the integrity of the Oval Office as we know it. It doesn't lead to chaos, riots, and rebellion if she's over the age of consent. That, my friends, is exactly why that came out. That's exactly why that came out. If you're the president, the most powerful person perceivably in the entire world, you can dictate whether or not things come out, and you can make decisions whether or not you shut people up or not, simply because it may harm the entire ship, being the United States as a whole. It may cause chaos and panic and skepticism, which is exactly what we have now. The chickens have come home to roost. So, speaking to Bill Clinton, you're guilty, dude. I hate to say it. I'd love for you not to be guilty. It's a terrible thing. But you did it. And you're not being honest. And the fact that you're not being honest about these little things make me want to believe that you're not being honest about the entire thing. But no accountability is ever going to take place. I'm fumbling over my words. I'm so upset. It's fucking ridiculous. It's never going to take place. There will be no accountability whatsoever. Mark my words. This will happen, and it will stain his name slightly, like a stain on that nice Versace silk shirt that he wore when he coordinated his attire with Jeffrey Epstein and whoever the fuck that other guy is. Who even knows who that slimeball is? But it'll be a small stain. Another stain, because he has plenty. They will face no jail time. There will be no other hearings. There will be no prosecution. They're not going to drag this on. It's going to be one and done. The public demanded a statement, and they got one. And they're going to have to live with it. They're not going to do any more investigative due diligence whatsoever. And that is probably because of Hillary Clinton. We know, guys, that both Bill and Trump, it's Democrat and Republican. That's the shitty thing about this. That's why both sides are shutting the fuck up. Because it's both sides. If it was just the Democrats, then the Republicans would be on it. Like horse on shit. But they're not. And it's because it's both. It's infected the entire government. These people, maybe that's the reason they want to get in office in the first place, is because then they can do all these sinister deeds that puts them just, they're above the law. Basically above the law. I don't want to trip over my own words because I have so much more to say. So if you've stayed this far, then let's get into exactly what, at least one of the main things Jeffrey Epstein was doing. So Jeffrey Epstein supposedly was one of the top brokers at Bear Stearns, and yet he doesn't have a single log of a trade. And you have to think that most brokers have hundreds of logs every single day. They make hundreds of trades, and he doesn't have one single trade. So what was he doing? Why was Ghislaine Maxwell so connected to him? Why did she think he was so good at finance, and why did she bring him up and introduce him to all of these very powerful people? All of these very wealthy people that own businesses, all of these prior and past politicians and people, important people within our government. Why? What did Les Wexner want to do with him? Why did all these people flock towards him when he didn't make a single trade? And that simply is because he was a financier that was doing illegal activity, and I have the documents right here. He was basically helping them manipulate their stock to their shareholders so that way they could inflate the price of whatever company or philanthropic endeavor they were attempting to pursue, attempting to build. And they would pull that money out from the back end of that interaction or transaction after that manipulation occurred, and they would pocket it. And I know that for a fact because right here where I live in Wichita, Kansas, right on South Webb Road, I believe it's 303 South Webb Road, is in the air capital of the world. I should, I guess, say, to inform you guys, there was an LLC by the name of Ghislaine in the air capital of the world. And so I reverse engineered exactly how that came about. That's right, they were right here in Wichita, Kansas. This was a massive, massive hub for connecting flights, even for private jets, and they were here, right in a building, almost right down the street. And I thought to myself, how? How did this happen? Let me reverse engineer it. And I brought upon, after searching and sifting through thousands of documents, this guy right here. Let me show you exactly who he is. This guy was the linchpin that basically broke open my eyes to exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. And for the record, this is why no news organizations are talking about it. They're talking about the pedophilia. They're not talking about what he did for these people in general. And a lot of them probably didn't do anything too insidious. They probably just used him for this. This guy right here, Melville Peter Tin Kate. I have the document right here. The SEC obtains final judgment against individual behind bogus tender offer. He was attempting to take over Raytheon at the time, became Aker Beechcraft. Now I believe it is Textron, but he was attempting to take that business over, and Jeffrey Epstein helped him. And you know how I know that? Because if you look at the LLC, which for the record, usually an LLC of a business, no matter what business, ties back to a person. An LLC doesn't tie back to a string of LLCs. So I had to go through each and every single LLC and then tie it to the property tax records. And it went back 10 LLCs. There was one connected by another, and that, my friends, is how I knew that I was along the right path, obviously. Because why would you put a spiderweb clusterfuck of LLCs one after another unless you didn't want people to find out exactly what you were doing? He's connected to, basically this LLC was in Ghislaine Maxwell's name, Jeffrey Epstein's name, and then two other characters. And I was like, who are these characters? One was the chief engineer of a company that eventually wanted to acquire, at the time, Raytheon. And the other went back to that same small company, which was nothing but a front. It was a front, a racket that actually produced absolutely nothing. It was ripping off his shareholders, just like Jeffrey Epstein did in the philanthropic work for Bill and Hillary Clinton in their pursuit to tackle AIDS overseas. That's what they were doing. How are these politicians coming out of office and becoming not just multimillionaires, but damn near billionaires? They have hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not just from paybacks from speeches, 20-minute speeches like Hillary Clinton did with Big Pharma. It's doing this. They are manipulating these philanthropic businesses, which are supposed to be nonprofit, for the record, which they're not nonprofit. They are very much profit. That's why every single president has created a nonprofit once they get out of office. They use someone like Jeffrey Epstein that basically inflates it and fixes it in such a way that they can pull money out without anyone having ever noticed. It's completely off the books. And that, my friends, is exactly why Jeffrey Epstein is so involved in all of these people's lives. He's involved in Donald Trump, he's involved in Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, and he's involved in nearly every single mogul in the United States. It's because he was their crooked financier. And that is very bad, and that looks very bad, and that could absolutely decimate our economy if that got out. So you know what they did once he finally got caught because he couldn't keep his hands to himself? They killed him. That's the honest truth. So, is there going to be any accountability? No. But I guarantee you that they're not going to speak twice about any of the finance aspects of what he was doing. Oh, he worked for Bear Stearns. Yeah, right. Look it up, do your own research. I did it for you, thankfully. But don't take my word for it. Do your own journalism. Do your own investigation. And I guarantee you that this rabbit hole is miles deep. Thank you very much, and I hope you sleep nice tonight. Nice. I hope you have a beautiful rest, knowing that this crooked swamp of government that has currently occupied the United States will not be found accountable or held to any sort of standard whatsoever at all. Thank you very much. Just know that Bill Clinton will have no punishment for anything that he's done. It will be dropped and it will be forgotten. We won't forget, but no accountability will take place. So with that being said, whatever, guys. Have a nice night.